Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
We're a couple minutes late, but the universe is abundant, so we're right on time, right? Okay. Good morning, and welcome to our, what did I hit? Not sure. It's check device power. We lost our signal on the TV. Okay. Oh, there it was.
Not plugged in.
Oh, okay. So it's oh. No, okay, why is it? Well, technology is a beautiful thing.
When it works.
When it works, yes. It's like my keypad was moving the menu on the TV and I've never had that happen before.
You're magical, you know.
I know. I was like, that's why it went all weird, because it was doing magic that it's never done before.
I don't know, Mitch might be available. He was here earlier.
There we are. Now just exit out of the meeting. Okay, I think we're on track now. Now I'll be really rattled in my brain for a few minutes. So this morning we're going to have a discussion about spiritual economics by Eric Butterworth, and this one just came up. You know, it's the beginning of the year. Everybody's setting new intentions and thinking about the things that we need to work on, or not really work on, you know what I mean. And there's been a lot of discussion, just in full transparency, there's been a lot of discussion within the board around the economics of the church and looking at all of that. And so this just seemed like a really timely thing to go back and review. And I'm really excited to see the faces in the room today, because I'm hoping that we're going to have a really good conversation about some of Eric Butterworth's comments on spiritual economics. So the first thing he says is affluence is, from the literal definition, means an abundant flow. And so when we are consciously centered in the universal flow, we experience inner direction and the unfoldment of creative activity. Things come to, but prosperity is not just having things, it is the consciousness that attracts things. And so really the whole idea in spiritual economics is a reminder that we are connected to the abundance of the universe, and therefore all things are present at all times for us to access. We just have to remember that we're worthy and expected to access it all at all times, and that what we are pulling into our lives as abundance doesn't take away from anyone else and what they need, want, or have, because it's all there all the time for all of us. And so just does anyone have any thoughts around that idea that there is abundance, an abundant flow?
Who's got the mic?
You know what? Y'all are just gotta be ready to dump me out in the road by the end of it.
Oh,
I'm
no.
feeling all kinds of discombobulated this
There's
morning.
another one over there too.
We wouldn't dump you.
You wouldn't. You would keep me.
No, just set you down gently.
Okay. Here, let me
This is for the battery, but this one does end at $10.
Okay, thank you, Rachel.
Test, test.
Oh, beautiful. Thank you, Rachel. Thank you, Village, for taking care of me this morning.
So, my thing is just about the flow, okay? We talk about, to start with, none of us have to learn how to use the flow. We are already using it 100% all the time. The only difference is when I said there was a little pilot, and if I take more than somebody else is gonna do without, my world was a world where if I took more, somebody did without. So the flow is not like a hose coming to you. It's gonna flow through me however I choose to define it.
Anyone else? All right.
Yeah.
Oh, Don, you got something?
I like the analogy of a faucet. Faucets are for delivery, but they can only deliver what they receive in pipe. So it's always a flow. That's all we have to remember. Because it comes in one side, goes out the other, and the more it does, the richer things are.
Okay.
When it stops, nothing happens.
I have found it interesting too that the idea, we all know law of attraction at this point, where if you want something, you just need to think hard enough about it, and you can kind of draw it in to oversimplify a more complicated process. But I found it interesting too that if you think with the phrasing of, someday I'll have enough, or one day it'll be good enough, you can put it off. You're restricting the flow in that way too by saying it's not yet. So just being careful of how we're pulling these
It has to be
things
now.
Yeah.
You have to feel it now, that you have already attained it.
Yeah.
Yes. Eric Butterworth also says the free flow of substance can only be dammed up from within, and that no one can keep you from good but you.
Yeah.
So, yes, so let's move on to the next one. So he says prosperity is an attitude towards life. And then goes on to say prosperity is a way of living and thinking and not just money or things. And poverty is a way of living and thinking and not just a lack of money and things. And so he really talks about in here that, there's a kind of a modern cultural idea that when we start talking about prosperity, our brains kind of automatically shift to money and things, because that's kind of how much of our culture talks about prosperity and abundance is in money and things. And he just reminds us that that's not, while with a prosperity mindset and attitude, money and things may be attracted to you and come to you, that's not the true, that's not the end-all be-all of the flow of prosperity, is that you have money and things. It's truly that attitude toward life, that in all things there is abundance, and that we can be, he talks at one point about if we said to you, okay, tomorrow, all the money and things you have will be gone. Like, when you wake up in the morning, it's gonna be gone. And he said, and then really sit into how does that make you feel and what does that make you think? Because if your thoughts are, well, then my life would be over, or, oh my gosh, if you go into, all of the fear and the panic and the worry, then there's other parts of your being that are not in a prosperity attitude, right? Because there are people who have no money and no things that wake up every day feeling grateful that grateful that they woke up, grateful for all the little things that happen, and still can have that prosperity attitude without having financial
Attachments.
financial attachments or abundance within their life. And he says again, he talks several times, it's not that money is bad, right? Like, we love money and we want money to circulate within our lives, but if you are so attached to the idea of the money and the things that all of your prosperity thinking and attitude is tied up in how much you have, then we're kind of like missing the mark a little bit. We're not as connected to the flow as what he said. We're always connected to the flow, but we're like not realizing like we've separated ourselves. We've blocked off the flow to ourselves when we get so wrapped up in that money or things is the only way for us to have prosperity. Other thoughts? I saw faces maybe having, I was gonna say, I feel like Wendy wants to say something there. Thank you, Greg.
Well, we studied this book with a group,
Mm-hmm.
when we lived in New Mexico, and it was one of the reasons that we had been studying with people from different faiths, and we finally realized that nobody was coming from where we were, and it was one of the things that caused us to open up to moving to another place. The part of the practice for me in understanding the flow is not, it's things, I practice the things and stuff, but because I wanted to understand the flow rather than just get money, a lot of my practice was like that. It was, universe, send me this, and then I would find it on the street for free. So that's, you practice with the flow, but you practice understanding the flow and being in the flow rather than just to get the thing. So you try lots of different ways.
Yes, and that goes with what I was saying. He says if you find yourself understanding this principle or being in connection with a prosperity attitude, then it is easy to call money and things into your life because you are in the power of that ever-present flow of abundance. So, but like you said, in your example, like, while it was fun to make the thing appear, it wasn't you weren't putting your worthiness in whether or not you could obtain the thing or how many things you have, which is a huge difference. And I think it's easy when we are new into new thought and we are hearing these principles of prosperity and abundance and how you can call things into your life. If you don't understand that foundational thing or keep reminding yourself that foundational piece, then it's easy to get off kilter.
It's almost like in some instances, if we label it as financial or like a very literal object, we're trying to control the how, is what some folks would say. I want to learn this new information, and
So me and him were actually talking about this last night. In my business, I feel very aligned, and when I feel in alignment with something, it's like I can just pull whatever I need out of a hat almost. But it's very different from, I can tell the difference from when I'm not living in alignment and I'm trying to force something versus just sitting there and asking for it. It's almost like I can, when something is in alignment with my highest good, it's way easier to just sit and attract that to you. But you have to be living in alignment with that energy, not opposing it.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So again, he reminds us the whole of God is present at every point in space and at the same time. And again, just that it is all there. Like Dawn, his example of the faucet. So there's times that we might turn the spigot off, but it's just sitting there waiting for us to turn the spigot back on, right? Like it never goes anywhere, it doesn't disappear. It's just that we stop the flow momentarily. And that the flow of that faucet has no emotion about whether or not we turn the tap back on. It's just kind of hanging out. Its purpose is to flow, and we've done something to stop the flow, so it's just waiting for us to turn that nozzle back on, and then it will willingly and gladly flow freely. Like there's no, it's not going to, that water doesn't stay in the faucet and say, you didn't turn me on for a really long time, and I've just been sitting here waiting on you, and so now you don't get water until I'm ready. Like, nope, that doesn't happen, right? And it's the same with the energy of the universe and the flow of the universe. We are the ones that put those things and those blocks in place, but the true presence of God, Spirit, universe, whatever name you give it, is available and there at every point in space and at the same time, and the same is available to every single one of us as we become aware.
As with any visual comparison, this particular one about the faucet, it will break down because it isn't what the chemist would call a stoichiometric relationship, one for one. It's sometimes a very small gesture, a very small addition to the flow can cause a tremendous response. It's not a little thing causing a little thing necessarily. It can be an avalanche, just one little gesture. But this flow is there, and it's always flowing more, at least, than you put in.
That's true. I liken it to poking a tiny hole in the dam. And then the water starts out as just a little jet, but if you ignore it or just let that happen for another day, week, month, it turns into a torrent, and then the dam is gone.
Nice. I love visuals, so I love it when you guys bring new visuals, because I will think about that's what will be in my head for the rest of the week, and then I'll just find myself sitting there visualizing faucets and dams all weekend. But it will be so impactful.
I just want to add one interesting aspect, if we're going to carry that metaphor, is I think sometimes it's really easy to identify the pinprick where we got a little bit of the thing or a little bit toward the flow, but sometimes that can be so disruptive to our beautiful, perfect dam that we've been trying to build and control and handle, that we panic about the hole and try to patch it instead of leaning into it and exploring the possibilities of maybe it's time to rethink the dam.
So true.
Yeah.
So true. Yeah. This is exactly what I was hoping for. You guys are making my day.
It's so funny. It's so funny because recently. Hello?
Hello.
Okay. It's so funny because recently, of my spiritual practice in the last year and a half, I've gotten so much information. And one of the pieces of information I got was in an Abraham group. And Spirit said, Wendy, it's time for you to, these principles. It is time for you to stop using metaphysics to poke your finger in the dam and hold it back. It's time to pull your fingers out and let it go.
Wow. congregational visioning, and about 20 of us came together and went through Michael Bernard Beckwith's life visioning process. And that's one of the things that I wrote in the question, what must we become to realize the ways in which Spirit is wanting to speak through us. And one of the things I wrote was, we know what to do. We need to get out of our own way and do it.
Yeah.
And that, I think that, like I said, in talking, in the transparency, in the board meetings, there's been a lot of discussion about the budget, and, if you guys stay for annual meeting today, we're gonna have some open, honest conversation about that. And I've really been, struggling with, where to come from with the finances. I think it's difficult when you're talking about your personal finances, when you got to get all that figured out and all your stuff with that. But then from a different level, when we're feeling a responsibility to our whole Unity community here, and trying to sit in principle and also honor everyone else's feelings and desires and all that. Anyway, so things like someone mentioned yesterday in the visioning that they would like to see us approaching it less business-like and more from the ministry church perspective. But on the opposite end of that, we've had really strong feedback from people saying, you guys have to treat this like a business and think more business-like when you're making decisions. And so there's that balance within, figuring out what to do. And so, like I said, that was one of the things that pulled me back to this, was like, well, what would Eric Butterworth say? Where would he land with some of this? And does he have some wisdom that would help me get my thoughts back in alignment with things? And so that's why and I know that there were so many wonderful teachers right here. That's one of the other things in the visioning that several people mentioned, is when we really sit and think about, what do we need to move forward or become the most realized version of what this Unity of Springfield is. So many people mention, when I sit and think about the people that come and participate in Unity of Springfield, we have so many amazingly talented and intelligent and connected in the flow people, that we have, as always, we have everything we need to do anything we want to do right here within each and every one of us. And so it was a good reminder to have that yesterday, and then be going into this morning as well. He reminds us that your fortune begins with you. So there's a great truth to be discovered that things may happen around you and things may happen to you, but the only things which really count are the things that happen in you. And that's really, he goes on, he talks about that's really the kingdom within. And if we go, Sue's talked on numerous occasions about, Jesus's teachings and the idea that he was always guiding us, that the kingdom is within, that there's no gold spires in the sky, and there's nothing on the outside of you that is more powerful than what is on the inside of you, and that we are each connected in that same way. He really also, he talks a few different points in here, which, coming from the religious background that I come from, almost seems, I laugh because it doesn't strike me that way anymore, but I think oh, there's a time that I would have thought oh, that's blasphemous talk, because he's saying that there's little clues within some of the things that Jesus said that it wasn't always easy for him either, that there were moments where he had to really go be separate and figure out how to navigate different situations, and there's little moments where he talks about having to deal with those conflicted feelings, or maybe not feeling like he was worthy of this title that had been bestowed upon him. And so, but I think what's interesting is that much of that's been washed out, or it's never focused on, because we're not supposed to think that maybe he also had human feelings and emotions that he had to move through in order to get to the place where he felt so strong in his faith and connection to God. I was gonna say, I see it, Wendy.
Well, we missed him.
Oh, it's okay.
Oh.
Also, Rachel Sigmund first. You got a thing?
I guess I find it.
Yeah, I like our batteries going.
Testing. I'm always directed back to the scene in the Bible where Jesus shows up and flips tables. And then I find it interesting that in my own personal life, one of the things that I struggle with is the moments that I move forward in principle and I have to step into my emotion to accomplish something. And then in hindsight, I'm like, oh, why did I have to respond so loudly? Why did I have to be so forward? And that's hilarious because, like, you think Jesus spent the next week after that thinking, oh my gosh, I can't believe I flipped those tables.
So, I don't see the stories of the Bible as very literally. And to me, Jesus or the Christ within the Bible is just speaking to me about me, okay, and the Christ within me. And the thing is that I don't think the people who were interpreting at that time understood much of what we're studying in here at a conscious level, but unconsciously, I think, that was there. And I don't think it's saying that we should accept the part of us that resists, the part of us that isn't claiming our Christ self. I think it's just an example of what can happen and what we'll need to work through and let go of in order to move into our Christ consciousness. So I don't know that it's like Jesus did it, but definitely that is a process within each of us. And the same thing, turning the tables, that doesn't even make sense to me. I think both of those are just the consciousness of human beings going, but, let's make him more like, let's make the Christ consciousness fit us. And it doesn't fit us when we're in our humanness, in our human lack-based. We can never fit our human lack-based thinking. We need to find and fit our true nature and stop saying, well, but what about Jesus? He did this, so we can accept that in ourselves.
Yeah, and I guess where I was going with that was that, like, when I think about it and you find these little snippets where you're like, oh, so there were some people that were relaying information within these stories to kind of say, like, oh, well, he struggled also and then came to this point. But, like, how would it have been different if that was the focus of the story? That going through that human experience and finding the connection, which it's all in there. It's just not laid out from that perspective, right? Because of what you were talking about. There was a different consciousness that was telling the story. And so the focus was different. What did they say? The emphasis was on the different level. Yeah. And so that's where I think sometimes metaphysics, we come in and we go, like we're going to tease out this other piece of the story. Whether we believe that it was a literal story or not, we understand that the message within there was maybe the person telling the story would just have a different emphasis or different understanding, different consciousness in that moment. Yeah. Yeah, Jerry.
We're never in lack. It's always abundant. The problem is fulfillment. Until you find fulfillment and you head down that path, you're always going to be lacking because you live in fear. And that is the problem with finances, is that maybe that's not the abundance that we need. Maybe we just need to learn that it's we necessarily have to be able to fulfill ourselves in each and every one of us. I have to have you. I have to have Wendy. I have to have Todd. I have to have everybody in this room. Okay? And then I can live in the abundance that's there, because it may not come to us in cash. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
We just have to look for the abundance rather than live in the fear, because it's there.
Right, and that's, that's what we were saying earlier about that it often does manifest in money and things, just because that is the nature, but you can be sitting in abundance and gratitude just as firmly with absolutely nothing, no money, no thing. I say absolutely nothing, no money, no things, because it's all about how you're seeing, the lens through which you're seeing, the connection through which you're seeing. He also talks in this section about that there are no miracles in an orderly universe, because all things are possible under divine law. And so he talks about how, people are often sitting around like, oh, only a miracle can save us at this point, or only a miracle will change my life. And he says that things that happen may appear to be miraculous. Same thing as money and things may come to you. So there may be things that happen in a way that you never could have imagined it ever happening. And so we, in our humanness, say, that's miraculous. However, if we're truly connected to divine flow, he's like, then all of those things, as miraculous as they seem, like we would know it was always possible in the divine flow. And so he had a whole thing about how the phrase expect miracles. He's like, no, don't expect miracles. Be grateful when miraculous like things happen because you were so in the flow, or that it came to you. But don't sit around expecting miracles, because that in itself is a separation of divine flow. Because a miracle in most of, by most people's definition, is something that was not possible without some outside divine intervention impacting your life. And he's like, nope, it's all there. So that was something new for me to think about. He also talked about in this section that, we get a lot of information. So this whole things might be happening around you and happening to you. He's like, we don't ultimately, like, each one of us may not have the power to change the entire collective consciousness and things that are happening. So he said, like, the stock market is the stock market, and it's impacted by other factors within the collective consciousness, or whatever economic specialist on the news is saying, this is good, this is bad, inflation, recession, whatever those terms are that are being thrown around. And he basically points out, like, those are the things that could be happening around us and to us in a sense. But if we are solid in what's happening within us, then those words and they really have no power in our own personal abundance and prosperity. And you think about, it makes me think about, like, Mr. Rogers saying, look for the helpers. And it's kind of that same way, like, so even in, like, when it's been the worst of economic times, there are people that were not impacted negatively by that negative time, right? There were people that still prospered within that. Now, we can argue the means by which they prospered, but the reality is that, like, there were some individuals that, even as things were seemingly falling apart around them, came out not really, financially or physically or emotionally or mentally impacted by those moments. And so that just made me think, like, well, then it is possible. Like, those are our beacons, right? That because it, you know, again, I don't know, I can't think of a good, like direct example of a story that I actually know, but I was just saying, like, was that a person who said, well, that's fine, but I am sitting firm in what I believe. The same as people who've experienced great healings and things like that. It's just, it's a, you know, that denial of the fact that the outside circumstances have to impact you within, and how much you pull that energy towards you. Zach, did you have something?
Can you explain more about don't expect miracles? What he was saying about the flow versus...
Yeah, so he's saying don't expect miracles in that, like, because if you're like, oh, I expect miracles, there's a sense that you're sitting around banking on this external source to do things in your life. And he's saying, if we're in the flow, like, we'll just be really in awe and grateful when things come together in ways that we never could have imagined. And we might use the word miracle to describe that to someone else. But it's truly, like he says, there are no miracles in an orderly universe because all things are possible under divine law. So it's never a miracle because it was always there. It was always waiting to happen. It could have happened at any time. Rachel, do you have a comment about that?
It's like, I know it's not working. If you're living in a flow state, the miraculous, in a sense, becomes mundane, not in that we don't appreciate it anymore, but in that we just, of course that happened. Instead of the other way around, where things like this are always happening to me. It's like, things like this are always happening to me. And it's a consciousness shift.
And that's a miracle that isn't expected.
Right.
Yeah, and he talks too about, you know, like he says, it's very possible, I forget, he's got some other terms that he calls it, but it's essentially like, you can be a black cloud person or a white cloud person. So, the black cloud person walks around expecting things to never go their way and that they have bad luck, and what tends to happen is that tends to manifest in their life, and they walk around with a little black cloud and kicking up dust, and things don't seem to work out. But the white cloud person is the person who's connected into their abundance consciousness and their prosperity attitude, and so they walk through life just excited for the next good thing that's going to happen. And those are sometimes people that were like, oh my gosh, it always works out for them. They, like, everything that they ask for, they get, or oh my gosh, here's another story of how something came to them in this crazy, unexpected way. Yeah, like, it's so cool. And he talks about, it's just the way we're kind of walking through life.
The practice of these principles comes in many different levels and many different stages. And that idea which came to me, of course, through the Course in Miracles, was there are no miracles. There's it changes in the different stages of practicing these principles. So at first you're not trying to, you have to let go of that, trying to get God to do something for you, which wasn't really hard for me because I didn't have a really good concept of God and didn't think he, really was a great person to ask anyway, or being to ask. But there also comes a time in metaphysics. I mean, if all you keep going is, this or something better, this or something better, I just trust that the universe will figure it out. When you begin to understand this, that we are actually creating every moment in our experience, everything that comes to us, everything that doesn't come to us, and you begin a practice that says, I can begin to ask for things to come in a way that to me before and to most people seems miraculous. But I understand it's not miraculous, it works on a principle. So I began with DVDs, and I had them all coming, and I would feel motivated. I would ask for a specific one. I started getting real specific. I'd say, stop at this yard sale. There it was. And so I finally said, universe, I want this to come in a way that I will have no doubt that this isn't me making it up. This isn't coincidental. So I said, I want you to send me the DVD, American Dreamer, and I want it to come where I will not be able to logic it away. And it's miraculous, but I know this is not miraculous. This is a process. And my oldest sister, who has only visited me 4 times in 25 years, and that says, we've decided to visit you on the way to seeing our son in Georgia. This never happens, okay? And she walks in the door, and if she knew that she was a part of this, she would be going, oh no. But she walks in the door, and she goes, I don't know why, but I have to give you this. She didn't even say hi. I have to give you this. And she pulls out the DVD, American Dreamer, from her purse. And I know it's not a miracle, although to anybody watching, it's a miracle. This is the way it works.
It's important for us to remember that even the scientists now are considering the possibility of our being impacted by more than 3 dimensions. And those dimensions could have an effect on us that we're not aware of. And therein could lie some of the miracles that we can't explain yet. But they are explainable if you have a deep enough understanding.
Right. And he equates that with, there at one time, we in our humanness, our humans in history, had no understanding of the law of gravity. Didn't understand how it worked, didn't understand how it could be manipulated, all those things. And now we do have a better understanding of that. And so these spiritual principles and laws, same way. There's many things that we're still not aware of.
I would touch 2 things, both thanks to Wendy. Number 1 was the effortless manifestation. We've had a personal anecdote. Our daughter, we sat down with all of our kids and we're like, hey, well, I don't remember how it started, but it was like, what do you want? What do you need?
We asked half a dozen questions.
We had several questions, and Olivia's was everything here's what I want. New Year's stuff. It was New Year's resolutions, New Year's goals for this year, and she's like,
my goal was
6 of her answers were snow globe. I was like, what are you thinking about? Snow globe. What do you want to accomplish this year? I want a snow globe. This type of thing. The next day, one of our customers at the store handed us this homemade snow globe. It was like, thanks for being you. And so I brought it home, and it was literally less than 24 hours, and a random ass snow globe just appeared in our lives.
She's 3.
She's 3, and it was really cool. The other thing from the beginning of what you had just shared with me that I really enjoyed and wanted to reemphasize is you have to continually relearn it, and that's part of the fun. Yeah. It's like you go to a college course, you complete class 101, and then you walk in the next semester, and the teacher goes, everything you learned in Manifestation 101, throw it out the window, we're starting anew. Because when you graduate from the first class, everything changes the next time.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or you haven't graduated from the first class.
Yeah.
Wendy, I also thrift manifest. It's my favorite thing to do on the weekends. But the second thing, Dawn actually reminded me of this. They did just recently empirically prove that our, non-material consciousness has an effect on physical matter.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it was the first time they were able to scientifically prove that. We've always known it, but now it's actually being observed by the scientific community. It's so cool.
I know. So that's the next thing is the greatest need is not to set it right, but to see it rightly.
Yeah.
And don't judge by appearances, but judge with right judgment. And so he talks in here about a study that was done where they brought college students in. They separated them into 3 different groups. They had them each shoot free throws, and they took their percentage of success. They took 1/3 of the individuals and said, okay, go away, come back in a month, we're gonna do this again. Like, they weren't people who played basketball regularly. They're like, don't worry, don't practice, don't do anything, just come back in a month, and we're gonna do it again and see what's happened. They took another 1/3 of the individuals and said, we need you to commit to practicing your free throws for at least an hour a week for the next 4 weeks, and then we want you to come back and we're gonna retest. And then the 3rd group, they said, we want you to commit to, I forget how much the time, but it was a daily practice of, we need you to sit and think about sinking successful free throws. Like, we don't want you to practice, but we just want you to sit there and visualize you shooting a free throw and it going in the basket. And they brought them back at the end of that 30 days. The group that didn't do anything, there was no significant improvement in their scores. The group that practiced physically for the time commitment improved by 24% from what they had done the first time. And the group who just sat and visualized doing better improved by 23%. And so, there's a huge impact, like 1% difference in their improvement based on physically doing the activity versus sitting and thinking about being successful and visualizing. And so he just is reminding us, that truly, because what science is showing is that our human brain does not differentiate between actual happenings and imagined happenings. Like, our brain can create the same emotions and feelings and all the connections to something imagined as it can to something that's actually happening, and we know this. Reading books, watching movies, thinking about past events, we know that it can create these responses within our body. And so he's just reminding us that if we truly, to be in that prosperity attitude, while there is action that is required, there is also this component that making sure that your brain is thinking along that vein and it is what creates within the physical world for you too. Yeah, Jerry.
Just reminds me of they did a study in Japan of the 100th monkey.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I think this is something we all need to take, and each one of us have this one thing in our minds, and let's see if we can work out the 100th monkey.
That's when the quantum leap happens.
Yeah, there we go. That's what we need.
And here, we've already kind of talked about this, the great Cohort. He says, Master Eckhart said, I never give thanks to God for loving me because he can't help himself, whether he would or not. It is in his nature to do so. Just that reminder that, again, there's no withholding of anything within the universe based on what we do or don't do. Let's see. We've already done there. So I wanted the last couple things, because we're close on time, but I'm just like, we'll throw all these in there, and what we have time to talk about, we will. So money is good, money is God in action. That's coming from Charles Fillmore. So watch your thoughts when you're handling your money, because your money is attached through your mind to the one source of all substance and all money. When you think of your money, which is visible, as something directly attached to an invisible source that is giving or withholding according to your thought, you have the key to all riches and all lack. And so, Eric Butterworth mentions in here that if you're truly in that prosperity attitude, like you would not have any money flow to you or from you that you weren't acknowledging and appreciating and sitting, blessing as it, flows. And he talks a lot about, especially around money, we sometimes use words, like how many, he said, if someone said, how much money do you have in your bank account today? How many people would say, well, I only have blah, 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 and then we would justify why, right? And he's like, so that word only, just that simple little word of saying, I only have $20 in my wallet, I only this, that you're like placing a lack on there just in using that word. And so it's again, we've talked about this also in different classes, and I think of it Prosperity Plus, where it's like, if the, we should be sitting in gratitude and understanding that flow of money, even when we're paying our bills and doing those things, like the fact that it is there and available to us to do such things is, being in the flow. Yeah.
I just wanted to mention that sometimes, I think Wendy is the one that causes us to have the influence that we have. She sometimes makes me squirm when she'll leave a $20 tip at a restaurant. She said, well, she did such a good job, and my mother used to do this, and so this was for her. This is in remembrance of my mother who used to wait on tables. Things like that. But she does it because she feels abundant.
Yep.
And she makes me feel abundant in the process.
Yeah, nice. I wanted to put, this really hit me, because I've had a lot of, I don't know, there's a lot of money stuff as far as like wanting to feel secure and wanting to have enough and all of those things. And so as I've been on this metaphysical journey and really trying to think, like reframe, one of the things that I have continued to be a little bit tripped up on is the idea, like having savings, having that, money available, but in, transparency, it's usually with the thought that in case something happens, and then what do we know? Like if we're planning for something to happen, something will happen.
Something like a vacation, something
Well,
like
so this is what he's like. I read this and I was like, this is what I needed. Like this. So he says the thing is, why do you feel that you should save? Is it because you're afraid of tomorrow? Is it because you doubt the sufficiency of the ever-present substance of the universe? Saving is actually a mature practice. We can look around in nature and see that all nature saves. The physical body is a self-conserving process. The Great Lakes of the world conserve water to sustain the Earth's flora all the year round. We see that saving is a natural and orderly process. However, we must have the high vision that we are saving for opportunities, not for emergencies. I was like, oh, I was like, that's what I needed. That feels so much better to think, well, of course I'm saving. I'm saving because there's going to be amazing opportunities that I will want to take advantage of, things that I will be able to do for myself and for others by having this. But it's not about a fear of what if something breaks tomorrow, what if, whatever, world collapses and I need this, and that's where I felt that was just a block I had and like an undercurrent that was keeping things from flowing, and like I knew it was there, but I didn't really know how to reframe it. And anyway, that was like really exciting to me to read that and start sitting into that as I was going through this and thinking about like how exciting then your savings account feels if that's opportunity waiting to happen. Anyway, and then I was thinking about that for us as a spiritual community too, like our money that we have being the opportunities waiting to happen, the things that we are waiting to manifest as this ministry feels far better than we need money sitting in the bank because what if we need a new roof? What if we need this? What if? So, it's exciting. Yeah, Greg, did you have something?
Well, it was time, but also the Jesus told that parable about all the servants that one made a lot, one made a little. They both got rewarded, and the one that did nothing had all their money taken from them. Does that ring a bell? Okay. That's okay.
Yeah. And so he ends this book with Charles Fillmore's call to the New World Vision, and Sue brings this up a lot. It's always like everything. There's so many things that Charles Fillmore wrote down or said, and you're like, it was true then, it is true now, and it just continues to be true. And so he's really just saying that, if we sit, we can visualize this world of universal substance where there will be no place for lack and supply will be more equalized. And I hope that we, in maintaining the vision and mission of this ministry, as well as our individual visions and missions, like that's where we're headed. That's what we're contributing to, and we can begin to look for the evidence of all of that happening around us. So thank you guys for participating, and that was exactly what I was hoping for, is that we would just have all of our teachers present today that would share, and look who showed up. So of course you did. Of course you got up this morning. Thank you. I'll go. So the announcements today, annual meeting and potluck is immediately after the service today. We are going to be voting on the proposed bylaw change. So members, stop by the table in the foyer to get your voting ballots. The monthly drum circle is Thursday, February 1st at 6:30. All are welcome to join. Bring your own drum if you have one, but there are extras here at the church if you do not. Planet Unity is less than 3 months away. So this year we are partnering with Springfield Community Gardens, and it's going to be our biggest and best year ever. So the next planning meeting is Thursday, February 1st at 6 p.m. and all are welcome to join that as well. Next Sunday, the New Thought World Religion Adult Sunday School class will be facilitated by Shondell Hall, and she's going to present non-drug tools for prevention and management of anxiety.
Cool.
The third and final session of Infinite Possibilities is next Sunday, the 4th, from 1 to 3. All are welcome to attend, even if you did not attend the previous sessions. Silent Sunrise is taking a break until further notice. That was mentioned on the connection group as well. The community cupboard is being accessed 2 to 4 times each day by individuals and families. And so if you'd like to pick up some things for the pantry, there's a shopping list of common items, or you can donate money, and we have volunteers that will do the shopping for us. If you've been attending Unity for at least 6 months and you're interested in becoming a member, you can pick up an application in the office or go to the website and click on membership to fill out the application online, because James is amazing and gets all that stuff on there for us. Thank you, James. All right, those are our announcements. Thank you all. We will